It all kicked off at Thanksgiving. My sister found out I had $12 million, dollars, and just like that, the entire family ganged up on me. They insisted I hand it over to her. Apparently, she was more deserving. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's story, I've got a quick favor to ask. The channel's been slowing down lately, and hitting that subscribe button is one of the simplest, most powerful ways you can help. It's totally free, takes just a second, and it lets us keep making content like this for you. Your support genuinely makes a difference. Let's grow this thing together. Thanks so much. Now let's jump in. I'm using a throwaway account for reasons I think you'll understand. Some details have been tweaked slightly to protect everyone's privacy. So, hi, I'm Emily, I'm 38, and yeah, I need to unload this. You ever grow up in a family where one kid is treated like royalty while the other may as well be a ghost? That's basically the story of my life. Up until I turned 8, things were normal, I guess. I was an only child then. My parents weren't exactly warm or affectionate, but they were there, you know? Mom helped with schoolwork. Dad would occasionally take me fishing out on Lake St. Clair. We weren't perfect, but we got by. Then one night, everything flipped. I remember Aunt Megan showing up at 2 in the morning, telling me to grab a suitcase. Mom was in the hospital. Lily was coming, my soon-to-be baby sister. But something wasn't right. She wasn't supposed to arrive for another 2 months. What followed was a whirlwind of hospital visits and whispered conversations. When I first saw Lily, she was tiny. She looked like one of my dolls, except covered in wires and tubes. I wasn't even allowed to touch her. I couldn't get too close. That's when it started. That weird, invisible wall between me and the rest of the family. When they finally brought her home, our house basically turned into a biohazard containment zone. Mom became obsessed with keeping everything sterile. I'm talking heavy-duty disinfectants, hand sanitizer in every room, constant scrubbing. To this day, the smell of bleach makes my stomach turn. But the worst part, the thing that really messed with my head, anytime I showed even the tiniest sign of being sick, one sneeze, a small cough, I was packed up and sent away. Off to Grandma Evelyn's or Aunt Megan's like clockwork. At first, it kind of felt like a treat. Grandma Evelyn made amazing cookies. Aunt Megan had this killer collection of Nancy Drew books I was slowly working through. But kids aren't dumb. Eventually, I figured it out. These weren't fun little getaways. I was being treated like a threat, like just being around could somehow harm my sister. So I tried to earn their attention in more acceptable ways. I really did. Got straight A's. Mom wouldn't even look up from Lily's endless doctor calendars. Won first place at the science fair for my renewable energy project. Dad just asked if I could store the display in the garage. Something about Lily being allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even real? But the real heartbreak came when I was 12. I'd been practicing Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano for months, getting ready for the school talent show. It was a big deal for me. I was proud. That night, Lily had a 99.1-degree fever, barely above normal. Not a single person showed up for me. Then 2 weeks later, our entire family, both sets of grandparents included, showed up to cheer Lily on for her 15-minute flute recital, where she barely squeaked out, "hot cross buns." Lily figured the game out early. By the time she was 7, she wasn't even really sick anymore. But it didn't matter. Got a headache? Stay home from school. She knew how to work the system, and they let her. Feeling a little tired? No problem. Someone else take over her chores? Stressed about an upcoming test? Don't worry, Mom would be on the phone with the school in minutes to get an extension. Meanwhile, I started spending more and more time alone, buried in books about art history and antiques. It's strange how things turn out. My bedroom ended up becoming my personal haven, mostly because Lily claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener. It was the only place in the house she wouldn't set foot in. And here's the messed up part. Whenever she faked being sick, some part of me actually felt relieved, because at least that meant I'd get sent to Grandma Evelyn's house. And there, someone might actually ask how I was doing. Might even care enough to listen. Grandma Evelyn was the one who lit the spark in me for vintage jewelry. She had this stunning collection of costume pieces that she let me organize and catalog. Looking back, maybe that was a sign. But honestly, it wasn't even the blatant favoritism that cut the deepest. It was the way they rewrote reality to justify it all. Lily just needs more love. She had such a hard start. Emily's always been the independent one. Emily understands her sister has special needs. No, I didn't understand. I was just a kid trying to figure out why being healthy seemed to make me less worthy of affection. Those years left a mark. Being treated like I was dangerous or just too much to deal with. That kind of message sticks. Still, if nothing else, it forced me to become self-reliant. No one was double-checking my homework. No one celebrated my wins. So I learned how to be my own support system. For most people, high school was either the best or worst time of their lives. For me, it was an escape plan. While Lily was busy building her middle school drama queen empire, I was quietly planning my way out. And let me tell you, nothing fuels ambition quite like knowing no one's going to lift a finger to help you. All those hours spent cataloging grandma's jewelry, they taught me something real, how to stay organized, how to pay attention to detail. So in high school, I brought that mindset to everything. My desk looked like it belonged in one of those perfectly staged productivity blogs. Color-coded notes, laminated study schedules, everything neatly in its place. Lily used to mock me for it, called me Rain Man. Thanks for the support, sis. I remember just staring at the results screen, frozen, for like 20 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I ran home ready to share the news. Mom was in the kitchen helping Lily with English homework. Our conversation went something like this. Mom, I got a perfect SAT score. That's nice, honey. Could you keep your voice down? Lily's trying to focus. She's got a big test tomorrow. And Lily? She looked up and said, yeah, some of us actually need to study, Miss Perfect. Mom chimed in again. Sweetie, don't let it get to you. You're just a different kind of learner. That SAT score, I still have the printout somewhere. Never made it to the fridge. But Lily's C+ in English? That one got center stage, complete with a sparkly, "We're so proud of you" magnet. The college application process? I handled it solo. I applied to 15 schools without telling a soul. Wrote every essay, chased down every recommendation, handled all the financial aid paperwork myself. Mr. Nakamura, my guidance counselor, deserves an award. My parents were too distracted to help with the FAFSA, so I stayed after school with him to figure it all out. Then the acceptances started rolling in. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan, and each one came with scholarship money. I kept every acceptance letter in a locked box under my bed because I knew what would happen if Lily found them. The spotlight would shift again, and I'd hear the usual. But if Emily goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone. Cue the dramatics. When the full ride offer from UMichigan arrived, Lily joined JV cheerleading the same week. Want to guess which event got celebrated with a family dinner? Hint, I had microwave mac and cheese in my room while they all hit up Olive Garden. But here's the thing. That scholarship was my way out. Tuition, room and board, even a book allowance. It was all covered. I was finally free of that house where I was either ignored or treated like a problem. The day the official acceptance package came, I went to my favorite spot, a fourth-floor window in the local library, overlooking the park, and cried for an hour. Not out of sadness, out of sheer relief. When I finally told my parents over dinner that I'd be attending UMichigan, they were thrilled. Funny how that works, huh? And what was my dad's reaction when I told them I'd be going to Michigan? He frowned. Michigan? That's so far away. What if Lily needs you? Then Mom chimed in. I really hope you're not expecting us to chip in for anything. Lily's cheer competitions are expensive, you know. Lily, with tears in her eyes, or at least pretending, just went, oh my God, finally. Can I have your room now? I need more space for my TikToks. That summer before college, I doubled up on shifts at Ruby's Grill to save every penny I could. Denise, bless her heart, always made sure I left with extra tips and a slice of leftover pie wrapped up for later. She also taught me something more valuable than any classroom ever had: how to spot real people in a world full of phonies. Sweetheart, she used to say, in life and in diners, the ones making the most noise, they usually have the least to say. Move-in day at UMEC finally came, and surprise, surprise, my parents couldn't make it. Lily had another cheer competition, so Aunt Megan stepped up. She drove me, helped me set up my dorm, fluffed my pillows, and handed me an envelope with $500 inside. "This is from your grandma Evelyn," she said with a soft smile. "She wanted you to have it. She's so proud of you." Later, I found out Grandma had been slowly saving that money from her Social Security checks, dollar by dollar. That first night in my dorm, I made a quiet promise to myself. I was going to build a life so full and beautiful that being ignored would no longer even be possible. Not out of spite, not to prove anything to them, but for the little girl who used to get exiled to Grandma's house just for sneezing. College was a whirlwind. Caffeine-fueled nights, bottom-shelf ramen, and a level of freedom that felt like breathing for the first time. I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan. Not that my family noticed. They were too caught up helping Lily transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where everything took an unexpected turn. I landed an entry-level position at a high-end auction house in Detroit, Morgan and Kessler. Not their real name for obvious reasons, but if you know the industry, you've heard of them. The clientele was old money, the kind of people who bought rare items just to lock them away. I started off working on estate sales, going through the belongings of the wealthy after they passed. Not glamorous, but steady. The first few months were pretty uneventful, cataloging china sets, photographing antique furniture, that kind of thing. Then came the Langford estate. Mrs. Langford had passed with no heirs, and her home was packed with what everyone assumed was cheap costume jewelry. But when I stepped into those rooms, all that time I spent with Grandma Evelyn suddenly became priceless. I was sorting through the collection when one brooch caught my eye. Art Deco. It didn't scream luxury, no diamonds or bright colors, but something about it felt off. It was too heavy. The clasp was intricate, far too advanced for a simple knockoff. I ended up using my entire lunch break researching vintage jewelry hallmarks. That evening, I stayed after hours to dig into the company's subscription databases. The deeper I looked, the more convinced I became that this wasn't costume jewelry at all. It was real, valuable, maybe even rare. Problem was, I was the newbie, just the girl who logged china patterns, not someone anyone would take seriously. So I leaned on what debate had taught me: build a case they can't ignore. I spent 2 weeks using every break and evening to study Art Deco authentication. Even used my pathetic savings to enroll in a short gemology course online. Finally, I worked up the nerve to approach Mr. Whitaker, my boss. I showed up with a full presentation, side-by-side photos, documents, everything. "Sir," I said carefully, "I really think there's something special in the Langford collection." Without even looking up from his phone, he muttered, "Emily, we already labeled those as costume pieces." "I know," I replied, "but check out these hallmarks. They line up exactly with Cartier's 1925 design stamps." That made him pause. He looked at me for the first time. "Where'd you learn all this?" I kind of laughed. I did some research." Long story short, that costume brooch sold at auction for $47,000. Turned out it was part of a limited edition Cartier collection made for European aristocrats in the 1920s. That was the moment everything changed. Whitaker started trusting me. He began giving me other pieces to evaluate. Suddenly, my childhood hobby of organizing Grandma's jewelry wasn't just a quirky interest, it had real value. I dove headfirst into the world of vintage jewelry, took every affordable online course I could find, spent weekends at estate sales, flipping through dusty boxes, learning how to recognize quality and authenticity. Started keeping a little black notebook where I logged different hallmark styles and ID methods. My apartment? It looked like a jewelry historian had exploded inside it. Diagrams on the walls, books piled everywhere, printouts of certification guides taped above my desk. But it paid off. The auction house started seeing results. I was identifying overlooked treasures, building connections with serious collectors, and learning the market inside and out. And the commission checks? They started growing. Fast. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just scraping by. I was actually saving money. And my family? Still impressively uninterested. I kept going to Sunday dinners like a complete idiot. And every time, the conversations went pretty much the same. Mom would casually say, "Emily's still working at that antique store, right?" I'd politely correct her. "Auction house. And yes, actually, I just finished authenticating a rare Tiffany piece." Then Lily would butt in without missing a beat. "Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you have to see this charm bracelet I got at the mall." But by that point, I didn't care anymore. Because for once, I had something that was mine. Something I was not only good at, but passionate about. Something that had absolutely nothing to do with being Lily's shadow or the family's afterthought. And then came the Rothschild collection. This was about 2 years into my time at the auction house. A major estate, serious buzz in the industry, old money, old prestige, the kind of collection people whisper about. I was part of the team assigned to catalog the jewelry. That's when I spotted it. A piece that, at first glance, seemed ordinary. Typical Art Nouveau style. Everyone else skipped right over it. But something told me to dig deeper. I spent 3 straight days obsessing over that item, barely sleeping, comparing hallmarks, poring over records. And I was right. It turned out to be a missing piece from a private collection by a legendary French jeweler, a piece believed to have vanished during World War II. When it finally sold at auction for $238,000, Mr. Whitaker called me into his office. I thought, finally, I'm getting a promotion. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and said something that completely flipped my world upside down. "Emily, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication firm." At first, I laughed it off. Me? Start a business? With what money? But that idea, it stuck with me. I began taking on small freelance authentication projects on the side. Word started getting around. Apparently, I had a solid website and a reputation for being meticulous. Private collectors started reaching out directly. One night, sitting alone in my tiny apartment, surrounded by jewelry reference books and scattered gemology tools, it hit me. I could actually do this. I could build something on my own. So I did what any totally rational person would do. I took out a hefty loan against my car. I drained my savings. I rented a dingy office above a Chinese restaurant in a sketchy part of town. People thought I'd lost it. Maybe I had. The office was barely bigger than a college dorm room. Rent was cheap because the place constantly smelled like Kung Pao chicken, and the Wi-Fi only worked if you sat in the corner next to the window. But it was mine. The struggle was real. Those first few months, terrifying. I'd wake up at 4 a.m., drenched in sweat, mentally calculating how long I could survive before the money dried up. Every loan payment felt like a noose tightening around my neck. I had a foldable card table from Goodwill and a chair I literally pulled from the curb. Don't worry, I disinfected the hell out of it. But in the world of luxury jewelry, connections and credibility matter more than fancy furniture. And thanks to my time at the auction house, I had both. I started small, authenticating pieces for local antique shops. My fees were lower than the big-name firms, but my reputation for being thorough started to spread. 6 months in, I got my first big break. A dealer I'd met during my auction house days contacted me about a collection of Victorian-era brooches. The owner wanted authentication before putting them up for sale. What I found blew everyone away. The collection spanned 3 generations. I spent 2 relentless weeks researching, documenting, and cross-referencing every piece. Turns out 2 of the brooches were extremely rare originals, previously misidentified as modern replicas. The owner was so thrilled with my report that not only did she pay my full fee, she also gave me a 10% commission once they sold. And that commission? $86,000. That was more than I'd earned in the last 2 years combined. Suddenly, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Private collectors wanted my eye. Estate lawyers were asking for advice on inherited jewelry. Even my old auction house started quietly sending work my way. I'm pretty sure Mr. Whitaker was subtly recommending me behind the scenes. Respect. Year 2 came, and I made my first hire. Chloe, a sharp gemology grad who reminded me a little too much of myself at that age. Super smart, wildly overlooked, and ready to prove herself. Today, she's my head of authentication and worth every penny. The business took off faster than I imagined. We moved into a real office space downtown. Goodbye, Kung Pao chicken aroma. I built a team of specialists, built a brand, built a name. I developed a reputation for uncovering rare pieces people had completely overlooked. You wouldn't believe how many historical treasures are collecting dust in someone's attic because they look like cheap costume jewelry. But success brought a new challenge, keeping all of it hidden from my family. They still thought I was working in some little antique shop. At dinners, Lily would make her usual digs. Hey, Emily, I've got this box of old junk jewelry I was going to donate to Goodwill. Maybe your cute little store wants it? Meanwhile, I had just authenticated a $1.2 million Fabergé egg that morning. Sure, I'd reply. I'll take a look. And my mom, she still introduced me like this. This is my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something. Meanwhile, I had just been quoted in Forbes, under my business name, thankfully, and we had just finished building out our third office. You know what's funny? Keeping the truth hidden actually became kind of fun, like this little inside joke I shared with myself. I'd show up to Sunday dinners in what looked like a clearance rack outfit from Target, but was, in reality, Chanel, and listen to Lily go on and on about her new entry-level marketing job. Meanwhile, I had just closed a single deal worth more than she'd earn all year. I even started playing tiny games with myself, like wearing real Harry Winston jewelry to family gatherings and waiting to see if anyone noticed. They never did. Lily once spent 20 whole minutes showing off her shiny new $200 Michael Kors watch. I was wearing a vintage Patek Philippe on my wrist, worth more than her entire car. Managing growth. The real challenge, though, wasn't the jewelry or the clients. It was managing the growth. By the fifth year, we had offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more nights on airplanes than in my actual bed, but the business was booming, and our name became synonymous with discretion. Turns out, a lot of wealthy people want their jewelry authenticated without anyone else knowing about it. The money? Unreal. We ended up needing a full team of financial advisors just to keep up. And still, I kept my lifestyle simple. I bought a beautiful home, tasteful, not flashy, in a great neighborhood. I drove a luxury car, but nothing that screamed it. The one area I went all out? My home office. Top-of-the-line authentication tools, a security system that would make the Pentagon jealous, and a custom-built vault so secure it could have made Fort Knox nervous. The irony? My parents genuinely thought I was struggling. Mom would say things like, "It's so sweet of Emily to help us out. She must be living off ramen to afford it." Meanwhile, I had just closed a deal with a commission that was bigger than their mortgage. You want to know something weird about success? The more you achieve, the harder it gets to explain it to people who've always viewed you as the underdog. It's like trying to describe color to someone who's only ever seen in black and white. They simply don't have the frame of reference. At that point, my company had taken over the high-end authentication market across the Midwest. Our reputation? Impeccable. But still, every Sunday I drive back to my parents' place and slip into the role of Emily, the humble antique shop girl. The mental whiplash was almost comedic. Morning, Zoom call with a Dubai collector. Afternoon, authenticating $1 million necklace. Evening, sitting at the dinner table in casual clothes while Lily dominated the conversation with tales of how she brought coffee to her boss without spilling it. A defining moment. There's one Sunday I'll never forget. That morning I had just authenticated a long-lost Cartier piece, tucked away in someone's safe deposit box for over 40 years. The commission? Let's just say it had 7 digits. Still buzzing, I headed straight from the deal to my parents' house. I was practically glowing. Mom looked at me and said, "Sweetheart, is everything okay? Your clothes look kinda worn." I smiled and shrugged, just trying to save a little. Meanwhile, I was wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater, handpicked because it looked understated. Lily, ever the charmer, added, "Well, maybe if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." Dad stepped in, bless him. "Lily, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you." I nearly choked on my overcooked pot roast, trying not to laugh. The anonymous transfers. It was around this time that I started sending money, anonymously, to my parents. Aunt Megan had quietly let me know that they were falling behind on Lily's student loans and medical expenses. Mom mentioned they might have to sell the house. Despite everything, that place still held pieces of my childhood. I couldn't let it go, so I set up a monthly anonymous transfer of $5,000. When asked, I told them I was scraping together $1,000 a month by living off rice and beans. They filled in the blanks with their own assumptions. Probably figured Aunt Megan was pitching in or some generous relative. Lily naturally took credit for inspiring the family to rally together and help. Watching Lily spend my money. That money helped them, no doubt, but it also had some unexpected side effects. Suddenly, my parents treated me like some tragic little martyr, proud but almost pitying, like I was this noble soul giving up everything to support the family. Meanwhile, Lily's spending habits went into overdrive. She'd show up to dinner with designer handbags, claiming they were outlet steals. They weren't. I can spot an authentic Gucci from 20 paces, and these were real. She started taking flashy vacations, plastering her Instagram with captions about how hard work pays off. I'm about 99% sure she used the money I was sending to bankroll those shopping trips, but I stayed quiet. The irony was just too delicious. The MBA drama. Then came the next plot twist. Lily announced that she wanted to go back to school, this time for her MBA. Naturally, it had to be another private university, only the finest for the family favorite. My phone rang. It was Mom crying. "Sweetheart, we just can't afford it. We don't know what to do." I gently suggested, maybe Lily could consider a state school. "They've got great programs too." Her response, "Oh, honey, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards." You know what's wild? At some point, secretly supporting them actually became enjoyable. Like I was living out this personal satire, slipping money into their world while they praised Lily for pulling herself up and assumed I was living off ramen noodles to chip in. When Mom called, crying about expenses again, I said, "You know what? Can I bump up my monthly contribution for a few years?" I raised it to $7,000 a month. Didn't even make a dent in my finances. But watching them heap compliments on Lily for being so determined with her education, while assuming I was eating canned beans to help out, that stung. The real kicker? I was invited to give a guest lecture at the exact same business school Lily was trying to get into. My family had no idea. The dean himself had asked me to speak, a seminar on the authentication of luxury goods and scaling niche businesses. I even had to make up some excuse to miss Sunday dinner. It was bizarre, like I was living a double life. By day, I was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. By night, or more accurately, Sunday evenings, I morphed into Emily, the struggling daughter who worked in some dusty antique shop. The breaking point: Thanksgiving. Keeping up the facade was starting to wear on me. Lily had taken more than a few jabs at my career lately. Mom kept apologizing to her friends for my quiet life. Dad still thought I should get a real job. Somewhere deep down, I always knew it was going to explode. I just didn't expect it to blow up so spectacularly, and on Thanksgiving, no less. It started 2 weeks before the holiday. Mom called me in tears. Her back pain had gotten worse, a herniated disc, and the idea of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people sent her into a panic. Now, I'd love to say I volunteered out of pure kindness, but honestly, I was just tired of pretending her dry, bland turkey was edible. So I said, "Why don't I take care of it this year? I'll have it catered." She replied immediately, "Oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer." I said, "Don't worry about the cost. I've been putting a little aside." She got nervous. "You're not taking out a loan, are you?" Of course not. I hired the same high-end catering firm I use for corporate events. These people don't just serve food, they elevate it. Yeah, it cost more than my parents thought I made in 2 months. But whatever. Thanksgiving morning arrived, and I was in good spirits. I had my laptop with me to monitor a major online auction in Hong Kong. A stunning Art Nouveau necklace was up for sale, and one of my clients wanted immediate authentication if they landed the win. Lunch was delivered right on time. Everything plated to perfection. Naturally, Lily had something to say. She squinted at the table and said, "Store-bought stuffing? Seriously, Emily, Mom's is way better." This from the same girl who once triggered the smoke alarm trying to make toast. Mom apologized to everyone for not cooking. But let's be honest, they were loving the food. Lily got real quiet after her first bite of the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which for the record cost more per plate than her weekly grocery haul. While dessert was being served, I stepped away to check the auction. Things were heating up, and I needed to be ready to verify the listing if my client won. I set up in my old bedroom, still exactly as it was in high school. Meanwhile, Lily's childhood room had been renovated 3 times. That's when things went sideways. I had left my laptop open, several tabs visible, including authentication software, active accounts, and a few contract dashboards. Lily barged in without knocking, because of course she did, looking for a phone charger. She glanced at the screen and immediately saw what she thought was a gold mine. Her eyes lit up. "Oh my God," she smirked. "Let's show everyone what you really do all day." Before I could move, she snatched the laptop and marched into the dining room. The big reveal picture, just at 20 guests, aunts, uncles, cousins, parents, full of gourmet turkey and half-tipsy from expensive wine they assumed came from Trader Joe's. Lily strutted in like she was about to expose a scandal. "Time to see what kind of important work Emily's doing on Thanksgiving," she announced. She spun the laptop around, expecting to humiliate me with some quaint antique catalog or a dinky little invoice. Instead, silence. Heavy silence. The kind where even the ticking of Mom's ornate clock, the one she thought was a replica, suddenly became the loudest sound in the room. There it was, clear as day on the screen. Current account balance, $12.4 million. Pending contract, $485,000. Recent transaction, $1.2 million. Hong Kong auction. Quarterly profit report, $4.2 million. Lily's face went through 5 different expressions in under 3 seconds. The last one was somewhere between shock and nausea. She actually stumbled backward. Barely audible, she whispered, This can't be real." Mom turned, concerned. "Lily, what is it?" Her voice cracked. She's rich. Emily's rich." Then chaos. Total silence somehow got quieter. And then Mom started laughing, like full-on giggling. She waved her hand and said, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. Emily works at that little antique shop." I stood up slowly, adjusting my simple-looking cashmere sweater, which, by the way, cost more than their entire monthly mortgage. "Yes," I said calmly, setting my fork down. "Actually, Mom, I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country." Her smile froze. "It's been years. All those antique shop jokes? I've been authenticating pieces worth millions. That little business no one ever asked about? It has offices in 3 cities." Dad literally choked on his whiskey. Aunt Megan's fork hit her plate. Uncle Ron went into a coughing fit. Then Mom's giggle twisted into something darker. Her face flushed, from red to an angry purple. She shot to her feet so fast her chair toppled behind her. "You have millions," she shouted, "and you let us suffer?" I stayed composed. "Suffer? I've been sending you $7,000 every month." Her voice hit a higher octave. "While you sat on a fortune, your sister has loans." And just like that, the moment I expected, instead of pride or congratulations, all I got was rage. Not one, "Wow." Not a single, "We're proud of you." Just fury. Lily, of course, started crying on cue. Shocking, I know. She wailed about how I had betrayed the family, how she had a right to know. Then Dad jumped in. "How could you do this to us?" he snapped. "We're your parents. We raised you." That was it. The floodgates opened. Years of being ignored. Years of playing second to Lily. Years of being the family's afterthought. I let it all out. "Raised me. You sent me to Grandma's house every time I sneezed. You missed every award, every performance, every milestone, because Lily might get upset. You took out loans for her private school and didn't save a dime for my education. And now you're angry that I built something on my own? The next 5 minutes were chaos. Mom screamed about family loyalty. Dad shouted about ungrateful children. Lily sobbed and kept asking how much money I really had, like it was some kind of math test she needed to pass. Meanwhile, the poor catering staff awkwardly tried to serve dessert, acting like this was just another fancy dinner and not a full-blown meltdown. I stood up, grabbed my laptop, picked up my actual Hermes bag, the same one Mom once complimented as a pretty decent knockoff, and walked out. As I headed to the door, I heard Mom behind me already brainstorming how to spend my money. Something about Lily's MBA, a new car. I got into my understated, limited edition BMW, the one they assumed was a used Toyota, and drove home. By the time I got there, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. The fallout. The family group chat exploded. Lily went full scorched earth on Facebook. Hidden wealth, she wrote. Selfish siblings. Secret millions while her real family struggled. The comment section was a war zone. Distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in 10 years were suddenly moral philosophers. Former classmates chimed in. Everyone had an opinion, but one post stood out, the one that almost made me hurl my phone across the room. Lily actually wrote, "I've always tried to help Emily," gave her career advice, encouraged her to aim higher. I just never imagined she was hiding all this. The betrayal is unreal. Career advice? The only thing she ever told me was that I should try selling jewelry on Etsy. Enter the flying monkeys. If you're unfamiliar with the term flying monkeys, it's when toxic families send other people to do their guilt tripping for them. Aunt Diane, who I see once every 3 years, called to say, "Family is everything, sweetie." Uncle Frank, who still thinks I'm 12, sent a 3-paragraph email on sharing abundance. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, how did she even get my number, texted to share her thoughts on responsibility. But the real kicker? They showed up at my office. The confrontation. I walked into the reception area Monday morning and saw them, Mom, Dad, and Lily, sitting calmly as if this was just another casual visit. Chloe, my receptionist, looked horrified. "They said they have an appointment," she whispered. "For authentication services?" Lily sat clutching her Michael Kors purse like it was her ticket to the vaults of Cartier. I sighed and walked them into a private meeting room. Mom started things off. "We've had a family discussion," I interrupted. "A family discussion without the actual family member you're discussing?" She waved me off like I was being dramatic. "We just think," she said, "that it would be fair if you set up trust funds for everyone." Lily chimed in next. "I need at least $2 million to start my new life the right way." Then Dad added, "And your mother and I are thinking retirement, maybe a beach house in Florida." I leaned back in my chair and looked at them. "Did you all forget the part where I've been sending you $7,000 a month?" Lily rolled her eyes. "That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us." "Owe you?" Oh, I had something to say about that. For what exactly? For the birthdays you forgot? For the graduations you didn't attend? For the years I spent trying to earn your approval, only to be ignored? Number, I gave myself everything I have. And you know what? I'm done. Right there in the lobby of my own company, in front of the parents who never saw me and the sister who always demanded more, I pulled out my phone and canceled the monthly bank transfers. Just like that. Mom gasped like I'd slapped her. Lily started crying. Classic. But when she realized I wasn't playing along this time, the performance ended abruptly. That's when things turned nasty. They refused to leave the building. I had to call security. Watching my 60-year-old mother being escorted out, shouting about ungrateful children, was something out of a fever dream. Chloe, my receptionist, turned to me and asked, "Do you want to press charges?" I said no, but I did have all 3 of their names added to our permanent do not admit list. The aftershock for weeks afterward, they bombarded me from every direction. New numbers, fake email addresses, even fake client messages submitted through my company's customer service portal. Eventually, I had to send a formal legal notice. Harassment charges pending if they didn't back off. Then Mom played her last card. She called Grandma Evelyn. But here's the thing about Grandma Evelyn. She's sharper than all of them combined. Her response? Good for Emily. About time someone in this family made something of themselves without strings attached. Mom didn't speak to her for 2 whole months after that. 6 months later. It's been half a year since the Thanksgiving explosion. I've moved into a new home. Gated, secure, peaceful. I changed my phone numbers, updated my contacts, locked things down, and my company, it's thriving. Funny enough, the family drama actually drew more high-end clients, people who respected my boundaries and admired how I handled the chaos. Lily, still posting thinly veiled jabs about toxic money and betrayal by blood. Word is she's trying to start her own jewelry authentication business now. Best of luck with that. As for Mom and Dad, the calls finally stopped after my lawyer sent them a formal letter explaining exactly how a harassment charge could impact their lives. Now they tell people they never wanted my money. They say they're praying for my soul. Sure, but the best part? For the first time in my life, I'm free. No more Sunday dinners packed with sarcasm and fake compliments. No more minimizing my success to avoid bruising someone else's ego. No more bankrolling the Lily Show. My therapist says I'm finally setting healthy boundaries. I say I'm finally living truthfully. So, that's my story. Thanks, Reddit, for letting me get it off my chest. And a shout out to the catering team, you absolute angels, for sending me a handwritten Christmas card saying that Thanksgiving dinner was the highlight of their year. Edit, answers to frequently asked questions. Yes, I'm still in therapy. No, I don't regret cutting them off. Yes, Grandma Evelyn is alive and thriving. She's actually flying in next month to help me catalog a new collection. And one last thing, Lily, because I know you're reading this. That Cartier bracelet in your latest Instagram selfie? Definitely fake. Just saying.